Hi, I'm Ania. Most people say I'm too trusting, but my daughter Zoe disagrees. She calls me professionally suspicious, especially when it comes to her safety. I never thought that tension would save us both. Mom, something's wrong with the air, Zoe said one morning, wrinkling her nose as she stood beneath the vent. I looked up from my laptop. Wrong how? It smells chemical, like when Uncle Marcus cleans his pool, but worse. She tapped her foot nervously, a habit she'd developed after Michael left us 3 years ago. Since when? Started noticing it last week. Thought it was just the filter. Zoe shrugged, her 13-year-old frame suddenly looking smaller. It's stronger today. Makes my throat feel scratchy when I sleep. I walked over, concern rising. The smell was faint, but undeniably there. Sharp, acrid. Could be nothing, but I'll call Derek to check it out, I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Derek had been our maintenance supervisor for 3 years. Friendly, efficient, always bringing candy for Zoe. A fixture in our complex who had helped me through countless minor emergencies since Michael left. Can't you call someone else? Zoe fidgeted with her backpack strap. Derek's been acting weird. Weird how? I asked, immediately alert. Just watching. I caught him looking at our window 3 times this week, and he asked if you were home a lot when I passed him in the hall. He wanted to know if you still took evening showers. She hugged herself. It made my skin crawl. The unease settled deeper. You should have told me this sooner. Didn't want to worry you. Zoe shifted her weight. You always say I overthink things. Not about people, I said firmly. Never about people. I called Derek, keeping my voice light. He answered on the second ring. Maintenance. Hey, Derek, it's Ania from 4B. We're having issues with the air conditioning. Any chance you could check today? Sure thing. How about 11? His voice sounded normal, friendly even. Perfect. I'll be home. I hung up, then immediately called my neighbor. Vera was retired law enforcement and the closest thing to security our complex had. Vera, I need a favor. Could you come by around 11? Derek's checking our AC and something feels off. What kind of off? Zoe's noticed him watching our apartment, and there's a strange smell from the vents. I'll be there, Vera said without hesitation. Don't touch the vents. Don't look suspicious. You think it's serious? I think we shouldn't assume it isn't. Actually, call Marcos too. Tell him I suggested a second opinion on the AC. Marcos was Vera's nephew, a police officer. My stomach tightened. You're scaring me, Vera. Good. 11 o'clock. I'll knock 3 times. After dropping Zoe at school with instructions to go to her friend Lily's afterward, I called Marcos. His response was immediate. I'm coming. Not in uniform. Don't mention me to Derek. By 10:45, I was pacing my apartment. At 10:50, Marcos arrived in jeans and a t-shirt, carrying a tool bag. At 10:57, Vera knocked 3 times. At exactly 11 o'clock, Derek arrived with his trademark smile, which faltered when he saw my neighbors. Full house today, he commented, eyes darting between them. Vera's sink is acting up, and Marcos is helping with shelving. Right. Derek nodded, but his eyes lingered on Marcos. Let me check that AC. As Derek climbed his stepladder beneath the main vent, I saw his hands trembling. Marcos positioned himself by the door. When Derek removed the vent cover, Vera gasped. What is that? She demanded, moving closer. Attached to the inside was a small black device with a lens pointed directly at my living room. Next to it, a small canister with tubes running into the vent system. Derek's eyes met mine, and everything changed. Ania, I can explain, he started, but Marcos was already across the room, badge out. Step down from the ladder. Now. How many apartments? Detective Rivera asked, pen poised above her notepad. The police had arrived within minutes, turning my living room into an impromptu crime scene. At least 7 confirmed, Marcos replied grimly. All single women with children. All with devices in their air systems. I sat rigidly, trying to process what they'd found. Cameras, chemical dispensers releasing sedatives into the air, all controlled remotely. And he had access to all units? Rivera turned to me. He's maintenance. He has master keys to the entire building, I replied, my voice distant. We trusted him completely. People always do, Vera muttered, her hand steady on my shoulder. I need to know exactly what your daughter noticed, Rivera said, leaning forward. The smell. She said Derek watched our apartment from outside, asked about when I was home. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. How long has this been going on? Preliminary evidence suggests 3 months for your unit, Rivera replied carefully. The cameras were streaming to servers in his apartment. I want to speak to him, I said suddenly. Rivera shook her head. That's not possible during an investigation. He's been watching my child, drugging us in our sleep. Rage broke through. I need to know why. What you need is to protect Zoe, Vera interjected firmly. Sarah at Victim Advocate can help with temporary housing. The door opened and Jordan Chen, the property manager, walked in, tie askew. Ania, I came as soon as I heard this is... He trailed off, looking at technicians examining my vents. A catastrophic security failure? I suggested, anger sharpening my voice. Jordan winced. I had no idea. Derek's background check was clean. References? Marcos interrupted, suddenly alert. We need those names. Of course, but Ania, Derek's claiming this was all authorized. What? The word came out as a near shout. He's saying you knew, that it was part of a security upgrade. He had documentation, forms with signatures. Forged, Vera stated flatly. Check the dates against maintenance requests when he'd have access to signature samples. Rivera was already on her phone. I sank deeper into the couch, nauseated. Miss Johnson, a tech called from the hallway. You should see this. In my bedroom, they'd found 3 more cameras. One pointed at my bed, one in my bathroom, one in Zoe's room. The violation was complete. I want to speak to the other victims, I said when we returned to the living room. That's not protocol during an active investigation, Rivera began. I don't care about protocol. We've been violated in the same way. Marcos exchanged glances with Rivera. A victims group could strengthen the case. Fine, Rivera conceded, but only with a victim advocate present. Later that afternoon, I met the others, Tina, Sophie, Elaine, Keisha, May, and Leanne, all single mothers, all with similar stories. My daughter had nightmares for weeks, May said quietly. I thought it was school stress. My son kept saying someone was watching him, Keisha added, voice breaking. I told him he was imagining things. Did anyone else get maintenance gifts? Tina asked. Derek fixed my disposal and left a new air freshener, said it was a free sample. The realization hit us all simultaneously. Additional chemical dispensers, Vera murmured. I have 2 of those, I admitted, feeling sick. We need a plan, Sophie stated firmly, her lawyer's training evident. The DA needs to understand the full impact. My brother works for Channel 5 News, Elaine offered. 1 call and this goes nationwide. No, I found myself saying. Not yet. We do this legally, methodically. We make sure he never walks free again. For the first time since that morning, I felt something beyond fear. I felt purpose. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Derek in an interview room. Sophie, now representing all 7 victims, sat beside me. Detective Rivera observed from the corner. Derek looked smaller somehow, his maintenance uniform replaced by an orange jumpsuit, his easy smile gone. Ania, he started softly. I'm so glad you came. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I said nothing, just stared at the man who had invaded our lives. The surveillance system was authorized, he continued earnestly. Jordan approved it after those break-ins. I was just following orders. Is that why you installed cameras pointing at my bed? I finally spoke, my voice steady despite my rage. For security? Those were mistakes in placement, Derek insisted. I was going to fix them. The chemical dispersal was just an air purification system. Stop lying, Sophie interrupted, placing a folder on the table. We have your internet search history, the purchase orders, the video files categorized by depth of sedation. Derek's facade cracked. He glanced at Rivera, then back at me. Ania, we had a connection, didn't we? All those times I helped you, brought gifts for Zoe. You can't believe I'd harm you. Don't say my daughter's name, I whispered, then louder. Don't you ever say her name? This isn't helping anyone. Derek switched tactics. What do you want? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? My voice rose. You drugged children. You watched us in our most private moments. The DA is offering 20 years, Sophie stated coldly. With your cooperation, detailing every aspect of your operation. Derek's eyes widened. 20 years? For what? No one was physically harmed? Tell that to my daughter who wakes up screaming, convinced someone is still watching her. This is insane, Derek hissed, mask slipping further. I helped all of you, fixed your problems. And this is how you repay me? By ensuring justice? I leaned forward. Yes. You're nothing without me, Derek snapped, suddenly vicious. Just another struggling single mom in a cheap apartment. I gave your life excitement, purpose. I was the most important thing in your pathetic existence. The room went silent. Even Rivera straightened. There it is, Sophie said quietly. For the record? Derek realized his mistake too late. His face contorted, then smoothed into desperate contrition. Ania, I didn't mean that. I care about you and Zoe. I've always cared. No, I said firmly. You saw us as objects, possessions. But we're people, Derek. People who are going to make sure you never hurt anyone else again. Please, he begged, reaching across the table. I need help, not punishment. I'm sick. I can change with therapy. Officer, Sophie called as I stood. My client is done here. You can't leave, Derek shouted, lunging across the table. Rivera restrained him as he thrashed. I know everything about you. I'll find you when I get out. I'll add threatening a victim to the charges, Rivera told the recording officer calmly as we exited. In the hallway, I finally allowed myself to shake. You did great, Sophie assured me. That outburst just strengthened our case exponentially. He's right about one thing, I murmured. He knows everything about us. Our routines, our lives. Not anymore, came Vera's voice as she approached with Marcos and the district attorney. We're making sure of that. All rise, the bailiff announced 6 months later, as the judge entered for sentencing. The courtroom was packed with all 7 victims, supported by family. The case had made national headlines and sparked investigations across 3 states. Derek, now gaunt, stood at the defendant's table. His public defender looked resigned. In the matter of State versus Derek Randall, Judge Winters began, this court has considered the jury's verdict and victim impact statements. Does the defendant wish to speak? Derek nodded, turning to face the gallery. His eyes sought mine. I want to apologize, he began, voice cracking. I lost myself in obsession. What started as curiosity became something monstrous. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll find peace knowing I've changed. Beside me, Zoe tensed. I squeezed her hand. Mr. Randall, Judge Winters said, your crimes represent an extraordinary breach of trust and invasion of privacy. You targeted vulnerable families, endangered children, and showed disturbing lack of remorse until faced with consequences. The judge adjusted her glasses. This court sentences you to 25 years imprisonment on each count, to be served consecutively, with no possibility of parole for 20 years. Additionally, you will be registered as a sex offender and prohibited from residing near any victim for life. The gallery erupted in tearful embraces. Derek slumped as officers approached. Ania, he called desperately as they led him past. Please, just tell me you forgive me, that you understand. I stood, meeting his eyes. I understand perfectly who you are, Derek, and I will never forgive you. Zoe stood beside me, her voice clear. Neither will I. He stared at us, mouth working silently as officers pulled him away. Outside the courthouse, the 7 families gathered on the steps. Reporters clustered below. What happens now? May asked, arm around her daughter. We heal, Keisha replied simply. One day at a time. And we fight, Sophie added. The lawsuit against the property company goes to trial next month. The legislative hearing on privacy laws is scheduled for summer. Most importantly, I said, we stay connected. What he tried to use to isolate us, we're using to build something stronger. That evening, in our new apartment, Zoe and I sat on the balcony watching the sunset. The air was clean and carried the scent of potted herbs. Mom? Zoe asked, looking up from her book. Are you still scared? I considered this. Not scared exactly, cautious, aware. Me too, she nodded. But I'm not having nightmares anymore. That's progress, I smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Vera called today, Zoe continued. She's starting a security consulting business for apartments. Wants you to partner with her. I raised an eyebrow. Did she now? Said you have valuable insights. I think you should do it. From inside, my phone chimed with a message. The survivors group chat was planning our next awareness event. Maybe I will, I replied, watching the sky deepen to purple. There's power in turning something terrible into something helpful. Like alchemy, Zoe suggested, always the reader. Exactly like alchemy. I smiled at my brilliant daughter. We take the darkest elements and transform them into something that shines. Have you ever wondered how well you truly know the people you trust with your home, your security, your children? If our story helps even one person listen to that small voice of warning, then sharing it was worth it. Tell me, what would you have done in my place?